What's going on, everyone? It's Simran Singh back with another video, and yes, this title is not clickbait. Today we have Brian Merrill on, and he's going to tell us how he studied to get a 29, yes, a 29 academic average on his DAT. I didn't think people like him existed. I thought they were just a myth. But yeah, I came across him, and he actually did such a great interview. We're going to discuss the resources that he utilized, the studying techniques that he used, the amount of time he studied. It's a great video. I'll make sure to have timestamps down below, and I really hope this is helpful for you guys because you really don't get insight like this often and see these types of insane success stories, because to be honest, he might be the only one that's ever gotten 29. Who knows? I'm sure there might be another one, but as far as I know, the highest score I've ever seen is 28. So incredibly happy to have him on. We had a great interview. But yeah, if you guys have any questions for him, make sure to comment it down below or hit him up on Facebook. I'll make sure to put in the description. And before we go into the video, if you guys have not already, please subscribe to the channel. Give this video a big thumbs up at the end. And obviously comment your questions, advice, and opinions down below. But yeah, guys, let's get into the video. So today we have Brian Merrill, who actually recently just took his DAT and scored a 29. Yes, a 29 academic average. I actually have his score sheet for you guys, so I'll make sure to put it in the video. But he's essentially going to give you all of his advice on how he scored very well throughout the remainder of the video. So before we get into it, I'll just have Brian introduce himself, tell us a little bit about himself, and then we'll go into the specifics of his studying.
Hey guys, so I'm Brian. I'm from a small town in central Washington called Wenatchee, so hurts to you if you know where that is. I'm studying at Brigham Young University. I just finished my junior year, going into my senior year, preparing to send off my application hopefully soon. I'm a microbiology major and chemistry minor, and I love to play tennis and go rock climbing. I'm in an a cappella group, so that's kind of cheesy, but I love cheesy a cappella music. What can I say?
So if you want to get a 29, make sure you do some a cappella music.
Yeah, you got to do a cappella. Just really channel the nerd vibes. I've been married for a year and a couple months.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't even know that.
So, that's an extra thing to
Congrats,
balance studying and whatnot. So, but it's great. I love it. And she's super supportive, totally helped me study for the DAT.
That's awesome, man.
I had enough time and stuff. So, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's me.
All right. Well, that's awesome, man. So yeah, I guess we'll just get right into it. So obviously I have never seen a score as high as a 29 academic average. I didn't even think those people existed. So I'm really happy I found you. So I guess first we'll break it down with so what did you utilize to study, and what was your, how long did you study for, and what was basically the schedule that you used in order to get the score that you ultimately did?
So I used DAT Bootcamp. Major plug for them. They are awesome.
Best resource out there. Yeah, for sure. I always preach that they're amazing.
I didn't even look at Destroyer or anything else because
wow, really?
All my friends that had taken it were just raving about DAT Bootcamp, and it was really good price. And on DAT Bootcamp, Ari has a study guide, a schedule that I followed pretty much. I mean, I adjusted a few things, but I pretty much stuck to Ari's schedule. And what really helped me actually was my best friend, who I was roommates with him for 2 years, and then I got married. But he's also applying to dental school right now. And so we got our boot camp subscriptions at the same time, and he was taking his DAT 2 days after me. And so we studied basically together. So we'd have our individual study, and then we'd meet together every few days and go over the questions we'd marked, and we'd teach each other the concepts, which was really helpful for bio, since there's just so much.
Right.
But it definitely helped for me to understand concepts and for we'd make up like dumb mnemonics to memorize, the random phyla of the taxonomy section and whatnot. So that was really helpful. But DAT Bootcamp was my main resource. And then I would also I save PowerPoints from my classes because I think that's just like a really good resource. And so I had PowerPoints saved from classes like molecular biology and genetics and physiology and stuff. And those were also really helpful to utilize. So like use your own classes. That's like a really good resource.
Yeah, I would say that too. Like bootcamp was great with just like learning the information. So when I took it, I used like a lot of like YouTube videos, like was a crash course, and
Yep.
there was a guy with like, I forgot what his name, but there was another big science guy who did like plant bio stuff too. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. But yeah, no, that's awesome. So you essentially just use bootcamp for the whole thing, and then you used your like university like PowerPoints in order to kind of like fine tune that.
Yeah, and that was just for like a couple details. It was like bootcamp alone was definitely sufficient because they give you they give you videos from Khan Academy or whatever people, especially like bio and whatnot.
So how long did you study for? Like what?
I pretty much studied for 6 weeks, like full time, like fully dedicated to it. I got my subscription like early April before finals were over, thinking that I'd like do that as
it's
well.
Tough.
Finals.
It's tough to do.
It didn't happen. So I pretty much started the week after finals.
No, it's so hard to like commit fully when you have school and stuff. That's why I always tell people, like, if you want to take it, try to have like a free schedule, because literally like the moment you start, it's like 6 to 8 hour days, and then like it can well exceed that afterwards.
So it worked. I worked a little like part-time, but it was okay because it's in a lab and I pretty much could go in whenever I wanted. So like I wasn't like constrained by like my employer making me come in at different times. I'd study like for the time I needed to, and then I'd go into the lab. And I mean, it was a nice break because it's just studying all day. I don't think it's helpful after a certain point when I'm studying. If I just like try to keep going, I don't learn things anymore. I need to take a break.
No, I feel you.
Yeah, so that was good.
This is another thing I tell people. It's like, don't put all your energy like into the exam, because like you'll literally lose your mind, and you get to a certain point where you just don't like retain any more information. So I feel like it's really important to have people like balance like all their other stuff in their lives and just do things that like they essentially have fun with, because like you never want to dedicate all your energy towards the exam, because that's when you'll just go crazy. So it's good that you did that.
Yeah. I made sure I would go like rock climbing a couple times a week and play tennis like once a week, hang out with my friends like a couple times a week. So definitely that's very important to help you not burn out.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, okay, so you told us here like what you use, but like, so I think what a lot of people have trouble understanding is like, what are some really effective like studying methods to study for this exam? Because I'm sure you did really well, so I'm sure you had it like, all going for you. So because I think that's something that was hard for me to figure out. I wasn't like really retaining information towards like the latter half of my studying. And I know a lot of people have trouble with that. Like once they start taking practice exams, they're not really scoring as well as they want to. So if you have any like specific studying methods you use that will be helpful to the people watching this video, like go ahead and list like anything that you thought was like helpful for you.
Yeah. Okay. So number one, like I said, was having a study partner.
Because I did too. Like I had a couple of my friends that were taking it, and it was awesome to just like consult them, be like, hey, like how did you do this question? And even like the bootcamp like study group, I would like post questions in there and ask them like, hey, like how'd you do this? Or if someone like asked a question that I knew, I would try to answer it. So like I think that's incredibly helpful that you have people who are taking it with you, for sure.
Yeah. And I always learn when I teach things. So I actually was able to tutor OChem 1 and 2 last year because I took it 2 years ago, and then I tutored 3 people through OChem 1 and 2. And so like I basically took the class. I took the class and then I essentially taught the class for those students. And like
so you had a good foundation essentially.
It just stuck so well. And so when I would meet with my friend, even if we both knew the chapter, like the material, we'd still teach each other the material, because that way you just make connections and you retain them. And sometimes you're like, oh, I think I understand that. And then when you're explaining it again, you understand it on a completely different level. And so that really helped. Another thing I would do is make sure I took advantage of spaced practice. So in my psychology class, we talked about mass practice versus spaced practice. So mass practice is like cramming for exams, which I do.
Yeah. I'm in dental school and I still do that.
Yep. So, it just happens. But I know that for long-term retention, the spaced practice is really, really superior. And like in dental,
spaced repetition, right? Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. You redo like the procedures so much that you're good,
Yeah.
And so I would write down things that I was having a really hard time remembering. So like if there's like a specific fact in bio or like these formulas for math or Gen Chem, I would write them on a note card, and I just kept the note card in my pocket. So like when I was riding the bus, I just pull out my note card and like quiz myself, put them away. Like 10 minutes later, when I was somewhere else, I'd just pull them out and do it. Like when I was on hikes, it's kind of lame, but I would like literally when I was hiking, I would hike with my note cards and like quiz myself on the stuff, but I wouldn't make a big deal about it. It would just be like a little thing. And so
when I was at the gym, I would do stuff like that too. Like I'd be mid-set, I'd be like, all right, what is this? Like, what is this? Like taxonomy stuff or something.
Yep.
And I would put it away. All right, back to the workout.
And honestly, that's like the best way for things to stick is you just review,
like test yourself essentially,
over and over, and like try and figure out different ways of thinking about things. And like studying it for half an hour in one sitting is not nearly as effective as studying it for 1 minute 30 times.
Right.
And so that was a big help for especially like things that were straight memorization, like formulas and like periodic trends or specific reactions in OChem. So I really liked the paper flashcards because they were a lot more efficient. It was only the stuff I was having a hard time remembering. And then when I'd master it, I would just like put it off to the side, and then like a week later, just like make sure I was still good. And so that was another thing. But maybe my actually number one study tip is to try and learn as much as you can from your university classes, because most of the things in boot camp were just a review. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to learn a lot of the things except for plants. I didn't learn anything about plants.
There's a lot of like the nitrogen cycle and all that stuff. I was kind of just like, we're trying to be dentists over here. We got to know all these different plants and stuff like that.
But like the physiology and stuff, like we went over everything in physiology class and anatomy classes, and like in my microbiome stuff, we talked about like immunology. So I think if you pay a lot of attention in your regular classes and you're actually trying to learn rather than just get a good grade, that will show when you're studying for the DAT, and you just have to like review these things instead of like straight up relearn everything that you once knew. So I really just love to like learn the stuff in my classes because I am a nerd and I think it's really interesting.
It helps. When you like it.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's my whole life though, like I feel like a normal guy that happened to get a 29 on the DAT, right? Like I
Yeah,
didn't
pretty normal.
dedicate my soul to the DAT. I just really think that it was kind of years of the studying that kind of accumulated in the DAT. And I also recognize that I'm blessed to recognize like connections more easily and to remember things more easily. So
Yeah.
definitely
No, for sure.
not all the credit to me. Just we all have our natural abilities. So
100%, yeah. No, I think so. I watched this like video by another YouTuber. His name's Ali Abdallah. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's like a really big, he's like a doctor and someone that makes like studying videos. And what he was saying, he actually did a video about how to study and the research behind it. So what he was saying essentially is that like the most popular method is like note taking, highlighting, and essentially studying that way, but that isn't necessarily the most effective because you're not really retrieving information from your brain when you're doing it, opposed to when you're actually making study questions from yourself and you actually don't have the answer right in front of you. So stuff tends to stick with you more when you study in that way. And with this whole spaced repetition, what you're saying is essentially like you have to continually look at it over and over again, right? Like even though you are like giving yourself study questions and answering those questions that you have made for yourself, you also have to continually do it so it sticks in your head and it's essentially like cemented, right? So I think that's like a really good, like you got a 29. I think you essentially use like the most, like what the research shows is the most effective like studying technique. Because when I studied for the DAT, I think for the first 6 or 7 weeks, I was taking notes, writing it down, wasn't really quizzing myself as much as I should have. And then until I saw how poorly I was doing, like 4 or 5 weeks in on my practice exams, that's when I had to really figure out like, hey, like I need to like genuinely like figure out how to study and like get a better score. So no, I think that's awesome that you do that. And I think that's going to help a lot of people out because I'll actually link the video that he made. It's got like 1 million something views, but it's awesome because he essentially talks about like, it's like a 25-minute video essentially talking about like, hey, like this is like the most effective way to study, retrieving information from your brain when you have it spaced out over a long period of time, opposed to just cramming, which a lot of us are guilty of, unfortunately. but yeah, dude, that's awesome. I mean, you essentially answered like all the questions that I think were important. Do you have like any, I guess, tips in terms, maybe even just like from like a mental standpoint? Because I think it's just as much of a mental exam,
Oh yeah.
than it is just like an academic exam, if that makes sense. Like,
Oh yeah.
it takes an emotional toll on you. So anything of that essence.
So I was actually, even though I was scoring like 23 to 25 on the practice exams and totally shouldn't have been nervous because, like those
It's
scores,
amazing.
those
If I had
scores
those
like,
scores, I would not be nervous.
fantastic, but I was still so nervous because it's, the DAT is like such a big deal because
No,
it's like
100%.
the culmination of like all your studying and whatnot. And I was like, I've already poured like $1,000 into paying the fee and doing DAT boot camp and don't want to again. And I was like more nervous than like anything I've ever done. Even getting married, not as nervous. But like the 2 days before, I would just like kind of think about the test and my heart rate would increase and I'm like, stop it, like I'm gonna be fine.
Yo, I would have dreams about the exam. Like literally I'd wake up I'd get like a 16 and be like, oh no. Or I'd wake up and I get like a 24 and I'm like, no, I was so happy. Like
yeah. And so like it's totally normal for like literally everyone gets way nervous. It doesn't matter how you're doing on your practice exams, you still get nervous. And one of my friends, he told me, he's like, hey, just don't think of it as nervous, just think of it as excited.
Yeah.
And so that like reframing kind of helped me. I mean, not all the way, obviously, because I still lost sleep like the night before. I was like laying in bed for 2 hours, like making sure that I wasn't gonna like sleep in or anything. But like just it's like really hard to just remember that the DAT is not the end of everything.
100%, man.
Like people,
Especially when you're in dental school, man, you're kind of just sitting there. Like, you have another reason to like worry about something. It's just one step. Like, it's just one step to like such a long and strenuous and tedious process. Yep. But at the end of the day, honestly, like if it doesn't go well for you, you have second chance. Like, that's what I tell people. I'm like, hey, like worst comes to worst, you have a second chance. Like, this is not the end all be all.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's definitely pretty forgiving, even if you don't do well. Especially since the application is built up on so many other things. You know, like some people are like, oh, so you can go wherever you want now with 29? And no, because there's the whole other part of the application, you know?
100%. No, I'm telling you, if you go to like an interview and they see that you're like arrogant or like someone that's like kind of entitled to, like they won't accept, like seriously, like I'm telling you, like, so it's not like the score, like you said, like the score doesn't guarantee admission, and just because you have a low score doesn't mean you're guaranteed to not get in. It's a whole process. They look at everything. Like I know people in my class in particular, 18s on their DATs, low 3.0s, but like, you know, they've done so much outside of just their grades that made them stand out. So like, that's what people need to understand. There's not like a concrete number that you need. It's everything that you've done.
Yeah. You know? And one thing that like an advisor told me was that dental schools don't want good students. They want good future dentists, you know? Right. So like, just remember that the DAT score is about you being a student that can handle dental school, not your ability to be a dentist, you know? Yeah. So it's totally normal to be nervous. I was like shaking for like hours, even after I came out, like literally quaking. And
yeah, you feel numb. I was like numb. I saw my score even. I was like trying to be excited, but I was like, wow. I felt like I went through some like emotional trauma or something. Like I was sitting there like, oh, I did okay, but like, what do I do now? And I just didn't start like kicking it until later.
You know, it's like Finding Nemo when they finally get out and they're like sitting in their little bags in the harbor, and they're like, now what? Literally what it was.
Yeah. Oh my god. But yeah, man, that's awesome. That's what I tell people. Like seriously, like it's not like it's a very stressful time. Probably one of the most stressful things I've ever had to do. Like even being in dental school, I think the DAT is still like up there. But I've only done my first year, so
right.
That'll probably change soon. But this is what I tell people, man. Just like, you know, I think just being like keeping your emotional like stability, staying as positive as you can throughout this whole process is just as important as like studying effectively, because like it's also a mental battle as well. And honestly, the people that are like confident going to the exam and are like excited for it, like as you said, like they tend to do well, because that's just, you know, sometimes you see stuff, you know, that's in the top of your head, but you just can't think of it because you're so stressed out and anxious. But that's like, and I am also like someone that's like a very like stressed. I get stressed when I like take like standardized test exams. Like that's something I've had my whole life. So like, it was definitely a battle for me too. But I think just like keeping that mentality, saying, hey, like, you know, if this doesn't work out, you get another chance. Like this is not the end all be all. Like, you know, just try. Like I think I just tell people, try your best. Like that's all you can ask for. If you look back and you say like, I literally gave it my all. Like I literally maxed out with the effort that I've put in, and I know that I've studied as effectively I could. For me, I'm happy because I did that. Like I did that for myself. That's like one step to the whole process. So yeah, that's good, man. That's awesome. Yeah, man. All right. But man, I appreciate you coming on. This is going to be an incredibly helpful video. And yeah, guys, if you have any questions for him, could I link like your Facebook or something? Yeah. If people have questions for you. Yeah, I'll actually put his Facebook like in the description. And if you have questions, anything beyond what he said today, because he was very descriptive today, feel free to reach out for him. And if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment any questions. If you have a YouTube account, you can also like answer comments down below if that would be if you're able to do that. But awesome, man. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. And Brian, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you.